Hey guys, so yesterday's video seemed to get quite a bit of attention. Others agreed that there wasn't a lot of information that was out there regarding prepping the home front for your impending through hike. So I got some really great comments, really got to appreciate all of them. You know, in particular, hikeification and probation terminated gave some real substantive sort of commentary that I've also included in this. So I thought, well, I should do a quick video that's basically 3 weeks or under 3 weeks preparation of the home front. So let me just get started. Okay, so first and most obvious is the family. Giving the family your plans, and it doesn't mean just your immediate family. Hikeification pointed out, and I hope that you are all aware that in 2017, there were a series of incidents in which the criminal element was out there and they were monitoring hikers and contacting relatives of the through hikers, claiming that the through hikers had been injured or something and needed medical care. Sort of a typical scam that's been going on. And so be aware of that. You need to make sure that not only do they have your plans, and most importantly, that you need to come up with some safety signal that you use with friends and family. That if they don't, whoever calls and contacts them does not use the safety signal indicating that they're sort of in the know, then they know it's a scam, that somebody's contacting them saying that you've been injured. Yes, it's possible that you're not capable of passing that information on to the contacting party, but better that someone go through the extra effort of confirming your whereabouts, location, and status before they start providing any sort of funds or assistance to an individual calling. So anyway, a word that they would use to confirm that in fact they are in contact with you and that this is a trusted interlocutor. So beyond that, your residence. In these final days prior to your departure, let's talk about what you do with your residence. Obviously, what you need to do is finalize either rental or lease agreements if that's what you're planning to do. If you're not doing that, establishing caretaker agreements and finalizing the contract that you would have somebody, you know, there's a lot of services out there that fall under sort of home security services that also provide this assistance if, you know, that's the way that you want to go. The third would be some sort of lock and leave situation in which you have someone monitoring the house while you're gone, but for the most part, you intend to keep the residence unoccupied. For that, there are a series of things you sort of need to consider. I'll just run through them real quickly. First of all, the worst thing you can do, either to a vehicle or to a residence, is to leave it sort of unoccupied and unused. Things deteriorate very quickly. So you need to have somebody who's going to come by and not just monitor the place, but actually go in, flush the toilets, make sure things, you know, there's no pipes busted or things that have happened in your absence. I have found that putting both outside lights and interior lights on timers that go off is consistent with what you'd normally do. In my situation, I had an outside video security system for my residents, but I also put the exterior lights on timers that they would come on and off consistent with when we would normally sort of get home or go to bed. I also had interior lights that were on timers consistent with when we would normally be using certain rooms. So the house wasn't just, you know, one light on, one light off. It was a series of external and internal lights that were coming on and off in order to give it sort of a looked-in appearance to people who may be monitoring a neighborhood. Another good thing to think about is the HVAC system. So have somebody come in and check that system, because you're going to need to leave it on. You cannot, you know, leave that house to potentially have frozen pipes, or frankly, you don't want that house getting superheated during the summer. having somebody come in and do that routine maintenance just before you head off, is of course, an important thing to do. Like I had mentioned about the security systems, even if you don't typically have a security system, if it's already installed in the house, which a lot of them are nowadays, activating that plan for, that year or something, is a wise thing to do, because you at least get some notification, or your neighbors get some notification if there's some sort of issue with a window or a door open or some sort of security concerns. It's just peace of mind. Lawn care services, getting a contract with the lawn care service provider to have somebody come, cut the grass, do that sort of thing. Frankly, if you're gonna leave it, or even if you're gonna leave, you're leaving with family members, your spouse or whatever, not leaving all of that burden to them, is something to think about. Other routine services you want to think about: pest control. Having those contracts and prepaying those contracts, just makes it a lot easier. And that way that, things are basically taken care of while you're gone. Finally, when it comes to the residents, one of the key issues is protecting and documenting the valuables that you have in the home. So obviously you have to take some precautions regarding leaving an empty residence and having valuables within that. And obviously anything from televisions to computers to jewelry to those sorts of things. Some of them you can maybe put in a safety deposit box, or take over to a friend or a family resident. It's best to do an inventory for those things, that in the event that you had a break-in or something, you have the documentary evidence. And one of the things that Hikeification had pointed out that I thought was really smart was, he said, it's not just the stuff you leave behind, but the things that you have with you, because things can be lost or stolen on the trail. So he actually takes a picture of the credit cards and other things, valuable documents that he's going to have, and leaves it with his caretaker or his neighbor or someone, so that if he has an issue out on the trail, he knows that he actually has a picture or photocopy of those items in the possession of someone that he trusts, in order to sort of expedite the process of replacing those key documents. So I thought that was a really good point. But think along those lines, documenting the existence of the valuables, making sure that there's some insurance policy on those as appropriate, as well as having them stored in a safe location. Oh, and one other point. In addition to the HVAC, another area to consider are your refrigerators and freezers. Not only emptying those, but you also want to lubricate the rubber gaskets on those, and to leave the doors ajar, because they will stink to high heaven in a storage situation. So you want to make sure that you properly take care of those refrigerators and freezers if you're going to be gone for a period of time. Okay, vehicles. Let's get on to those. Similar to your residence, as I had mentioned, leaving a vehicle and not using it for an extended period of time is really bad and hard on the vehicle. So ideally, the first thing to do is to have a caretaker who would actually start the vehicle, drive the vehicle, operate the vehicle, so that it does not sit idle. In any instance, you want to address all of the things that you possibly can prior to your departure. So prepaying taxes, making sure there's no outstanding tickets, or making sure that the registration process, you can prepay that, inspections, all of those sorts of things. If you can do those ahead of time for the vehicles, that would be the best course of action. Frankly, even if you're leaving a spouse behind, it's just like the lawn care service or other routine maintenance things. That's just one more thing that you're putting on their plate. Try to address those issues and get them out of the way. It's like the auto pay or the billing services. One less thing that they have to do. Okay, whether you're going to leave the vehicle at your residence, or you're going to hire an actual storage facility, some things that you've got to consider. First and foremost, changing and using stabilizers for the fuel and fluids in the vehicle. You'll want to do that. The next issue is the battery. Either disconnecting the battery or ideally being able to use like a battery tender to keep that battery sort of charged up. Electrical systems in cars don't like to be without power. Ideally, you either want to have a trickle charger on that or you want to disconnect the battery entirely. A big issue with the vehicles are the tires. So if they sit in one static position for an extended period of time, you're going to start to get dry rot with the tires. Next thing you know, you're going to have to replace the tires. So the best thing to do is to use the jack stands and simply elevate the car so that the weight of the vehicle is not compressing the tires and that they're slowly getting flat. Those things that lead to sort of the dry rot on the tires. And the last thing you want to do is to have the car detailed. So you have wax on the paint and you don't have oxidation or chalking issues with the paint. Also, to make sure that the leather and rubber on the vehicle is treated just like your refrigerator, those gaskets will dry out. So you will want to make sure that all that those things are properly lubricated. Okay, once some of these physical structures are taken care of, as I had mentioned, obviously your legal, financial, and medical appointments, you need to follow through with those, as well as the lodging and reservations. And don't forget, it may not just be your outbound and inbound reservations. If you have special events that are going to occur and you're going to get off trail, you already know you're going to get off trail for, a graduation ceremony, a wedding, whatever it happens to be. Getting those reservations done and scheduled prior to your departure just again eases the sort of concerns and burdens of those people who are impacted by that. Okay, so for those things specific to the trail, a couple of important things. One is I personally reaching out to ATC. In fact, I visited ATC when I was back in the States just last week to learn of any impending or existing changes to regulations or requirements. So like where do they require the bear canisters, where do you require park permits, those sorts of things that could change. It's good to know those things, even if you're not going to take a course of action until you're actually on the trail to address them. But, surprises are never a good thing for anybody. So I just do a check-in with ATC, make sure that I'm up to speed on the conditions of the trail and also the regulations or other things that may impact the through hike. Also regarding preparation for the trail, this final period is when you're going to be purchasing and also preparing whatever mail drops you've decided to have. A lot of our predecessors, are recommending like 6 locations that are towns that are either expensive or hard to resupply in. You may choose to do that, so you want to make sure that those boxes and the mailing addresses and all that sort of thing are filled out to minimize the burden on your facilitator. And then finally, for me, I'm also going to have a bounce box that travels essentially along with me up the trail. So ATC, mail drops, and bounce box sort of considerations. Okay, the last thing that I want to just mention is something that I basically said I wasn't going to talk about during the last video, which is sort of the family considerations. And, take it for what it is. I don't have kids, but I can remember from my own childhood when, my father was away quite a bit, some of the considerations that added to the burden on my mom. So having the conversations with the kids as far as not just you being gone, but what your expectations are of them. If you're not getting a lawn service, who's going to take care of the lawn? If you're not turning off the mail, who's going to pick up the mail? Who's going to grocery shop? Who's going to cook? Who's going to pick up the siblings from school or take them to baseball practice or whatever it is? Are the kids of age to be able to support their mother or father in a way that will sort of ease that burden? You're better off as a team, sitting down and delegating those responsibilities before you're on trail than to have the one parent attempting to address these issues, particularly with teenage kids, without the support of you. And frankly, sometimes it's a good opportunity. I mean, again, I don't know, everybody's situation, everybody's family, but this is a good time to instill those disciplinary practices. So my lessons learned from that, from others, again, take it for what it is that those conversations and those agreements are best addressed when you're still at home and accessible, rather than when you are part-time and you're out on deployment or out on the hike. I'm sure there are a bunch of other considerations that I've missed. Like I said, the comments for my last one were fantastic. I just thought I'd put this one out real quick as a sort of follow-up to that, and the closer kind of crunch time just before your deployment. There are a number of deployment resources that are available. If you look up things like family resources and that sort of thing on .mil sites, or there's civilian sites as well, there are a number of different sites that you can use and access to give you these checklists. And that is it. What I want to say is thank you. Appreciate it. Again, appreciate the support. Appreciate you subscribing, liking, and commenting on the videos. And I hope that this public service announcement is going to be of value to somebody. Thanks, guys. Scars out.